I'm Jesse McQuarters, editor of Stat Brand Studio, and I'm here at the Assembia Conference in Las Vegas 2026 with Guy Payette, who's Senior Vice President and President of Global Pharma Services for Cencora. Guy, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about the scope of things that you do at Cencora, some of the work that you do, and some of the things that are getting you most excited these days.
Yeah, so really, at the core of everything that we do is the patient. So we work with manufacturers, both locally, when I say locally in the United States, but also globally. And that's really exciting because all the services that we do span across North America and in Europe. And we help thousands and thousands of patients every day. And really what we're focused on is removing that friction in the system where we can really make sure that patients are getting those really innovative medicines that are made by manufacturers, and we're making sure that they're getting them as quickly as possible.
Absolutely, extraordinarily complicated and complex. I'm sure, some specialty therapies are, require certain cold chain requirements and certain, sort of transport requirements. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We really span the whole gamut from less complex medications, but to the complex medications. And as you were saying, the more complex they are, you get into cold chain distribution, going from ambient products to products that we have to distribute and keep at 2 to 8 degrees, and then you get into the cold and ultra cold. And when I say cold, like minus 20, I'm Canadian, so I'm used to that, but not everyone's used to that. But then also you get the minus 80s, and you get into those types of products. And the key there is not only do we store them at those temperatures, but then how do you move them through the logistic chain so that they get to the end user and maintain their integrity all the way through. And that's where we come in, and we're specialists at that, and we qualify all our shippers, all our shipping lanes, and make sure that logistically that nothing is sitting anywhere and that the product is getting to the patient at the right time under the right temperatures.
All right. So tell me a little bit about how your team supports the therapy journey today, and what outcomes are you most focused on improving?
Yeah, our teams are really focused, again, as I said, is around making sure that the patient is receiving that drug at the right time. And the outcome that we're most focused on for us is how can we do that as quickly as possible. And I'll expand a little bit on that, and that is we live in a very complex world. A lot of, and when you look at healthcare, so many complexities around reimbursement, different treatment modalities, and also administration modalities. So what we try to strive for every day is when we're thinking about accelerating from clinical to commercial, but then when it's commercial, we look at that commercial product is limiting the amount of days that it takes from prescription to administration and making that as short as possible so those patients can get those life, saving drugs as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and let alone all the regulatory, differences that, happen in the EMA versus FDA, and.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the other strength that we have is that because we're a global company, we understand all the nuances between whether it's the FDA or Health Canada, or we look at all the European countries that also have different regulations, and we can navigate those all and try to make that as seamless as possible for our manufacturer partners.
Right. And what are the biggest friction points you see preventing innovative therapies from reaching the right patients quickly? And how does your team remove or reduce those barriers?
Yeah, I think we touched on a few of them, but definitely there's definitely regulatory hurdles, and often it's taking longer and longer. So we work towards making sure that the files are as ready as possible to make sure that the paperwork is done in the right way, making sure even that any QA testing that needs to be done is done properly so that there are no rejections up front. So we're really trying to make sure that everything is prepared so that when it does get filed, it gets through on the first pass. And then, of course, once we get through that, we're also removing friction in terms of the reimbursement landscape, and we could talk about that for hours in terms of all the different things that we do there. But but it's definitely on the regulatory side and then the market access side.
And can you give me an example of when multiple Cencora capabilities really come together to deliver a better end-to-end experience for your patients and the collaborators you have?
Yeah, really, when you think about from, I would say, on the clinical side, I'll just do an end-to-end example, and that is we could be, for example, assistant in the regulatory dossier, preparing that, submitting that to the health authorities. Once it's approved, of course, then you're looking for how am I going to distribute my product. We could provide the 3PL logistics for that, and then in every jurisdiction, you need pharmacovigilance, so we can ladder that service on, and then from there on are all the commercial services, whether it's patient assistance, helping deal with affordability issues that arise, and then also we talked about the logistics, what pathway, what temperature do we need to be moving this product through.
All right. And for those in the STAT audience that are not familiar, 3PL stands for?
Third-party logistics.
Of course, great. And what capabilities matter most to deliver reliable solutions at scale? Because again, you're talking about just a vast number of endpoints that materials are being delivered to. You're really affecting a lot of people all around the world.
Yeah, well, I think it starts with the expertise and understanding the dynamics of what we're trying to solve, what products we're trying to move, and then having the right infrastructure. And when that all comes together, it's really it's like an orchestra, right? And everybody's doing the right things at the right time, and I think that's what we excel at. And of course, if you think about kind of having that control tower of looking at, where is the product now, where does it need to be next, and did it get to its final destination, and having an overall view of that and being able to orchestrate that perfectly so that every time you get that consistent delivery, it's not heroics that required to get that product there. We do that consistently all day long, and that's what we excel at.
Yeah, and certainly remembering that there's a patient or a clinician's office at the end of that where those therapies are really being put to use, right?
Absolutely, and those physician offices rely on us getting the product there on time, and also a lot of them have different nuances on how they like to receive things, what time, and again, we're getting a little bit more granular, but those all come into play as well in making sure that we have a very good provider experience, but also a patient experience.
Okay. And then we are here at Asembia. Conferences are always a chance to look ahead and see what's coming down the pipeline. Looking ahead at the next 12 to 14 months, what gets you most excited? What are you looking forward to most?
Yeah, when I look at the next 12 to 14 months, we haven't touched on AI yet, and I would say that as we think about digitization and being better at everything we do, you're going to see a lot of innovation with AI in delivering more value and speeding up processes where they make sense, and making sure that, again, we're reducing that time from script to administration, and AI is going to play a big role in that. And right now we have a lot of use cases that we're testing, and we're going to be putting a lot of those into production that are going to help us achieve that.
All right, and just to wrap things up, STAT is based in Boston, home of Dunkin' Donuts. What's your preference, Tim Hortons or Dunkin' Donuts?
Wow, so love them both, but I have to say that because I'm Canadian, I pretty much every day go to my friendly Timmy's.
All right, well said, and expected. So, Guy Payette, SVP and President of Global Pharma Services at Cencora, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today.
Thank you for having me today.